ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Esteemed FaceTime with Leaders, an initiative by World Development Corporation. My name is Tanayol, and I'm an anchor at World Development Corporation. FaceTime with Leaders is a platform for industry leaders to come together to share their knowledge, ideas, thoughts, and best practices with one another, as well as with upcoming future leaders. In a nutshell, we attempt to encapsulate the multi-decadal learnings of all our industry stalwarts. We also hope that by conducting these FaceTime with Leader interviews, we can bring together a global community of eminent personalities. By bringing together such visionaries on one platform, we hope to play a part in inspiring the lives of other great leaders. Great learnings from great leaders undoubtedly assist everyone by helping us nurturing, identifying, and applying trade secrets that have already proven a success formula for so many. And this is what we aim for with these sessions by making them a gathering of industry stalwarts and a knowledge sharing community. We have one such multi-sectoral titan, Mr. Vishal R. Injewar here today. We welcome you on the show, sir.
Hi.
His journey is one of exceptionalism in the realms of business strategy and IT solutions. With a 16-year career spanning defense, telecommunications, pharmaceuticals, and life sciences, he has honed the art of solving intricate business problems, constantly refining outcomes, and uncovering value. His impact is profound, particularly in telecom, pharma, and life sciences, where his initiatives have consistently boosted productivity, reduced response times, and ensured compliance with rigorous standards. Vishal's visionary leadership, coupled with his hands-on approach, has not only driven innovation and efficiency, but has also steered organizations to new pinnacles of success. His name resonates as a transformative force in the industry. So, Vishal sir, could you let our viewers know, in fact, about your career journey so far?
Yeah, I graduated back in 2003 as an engineer. And after that, I spent a brief period in defense research and development. So I was with the aeronautical development establishment for a year or so. At that point in time, I was involved in the UAV program, and it was at a pretty nascent state. Actually, the first product from ED came much later, but I was involved for some bit in one of those programs. Followed by that, I went for my MBA. I completed my MBA from IIM Calcutta. And from there, I went into the telecom software field. So I was with Tech Mahindra for about 6 years. I was working for British Telecom, which is Europe's largest telco. So it has been an exciting journey there. I was in UK for around 2 years. And telecom is a regulated field. And while I was there, in fact, there was a kind of a technology transformation in telecom happening at that point in time. So we were moving away from ATM networks into IP-based networks at that point in time. And I was involved in some of those programs. So followed by that, I went into the pharma field. I was with Dr. Reddy's Laboratories for about 8 years. And Dr. Reddy's is one of the top tier global generic pharma companies in India. And it is one of the largest suppliers of global generics worldwide, including Russia, Europe, and US. Followed by that, I went into the clinical and life sciences field, and I'm currently in that field for about 3 years. So I'm working with LabCorp drug development here. And the journey so far has been very exciting, and it has been very challenging also. And it has transformed me a lot. Most of the sectors that I've worked in are highly regulated. So defense is regulated, telecom is also regulated, and life sciences is much more regulated. So it has been a lot of challenges that I have undertaken throughout this journey.
Sir, could you share a specific project or initiative from your career, and what are the key strategies that have contributed to your career?
Yeah, so rather than the projects, I will just talk about a phase which was very, very challenging. So this happened when I switched over from Tech Mahindra to Dr. Reddy's. So that was a switch from telecom sector into a pharma sector. You see, both these sectors are regulated. So telecommunications is also a regulated sector, and pharma and life sciences is also regulated. But pharma and life sciences is highly regulated because it is life critical. Medicines are life critical. So the regulation goes much more deeper, and it affects all aspects of drug discovery, drug development, and drug manufacturing. So every step of this journey of drug development is completely regulated. While that's not so in telecommunications, the directions and regulations are much more at the level of principle. Okay, they are not fine grilled to how you provide or define the service. Okay, they are at a much higher level, but that's not so in for drugs and medicines. So it was completely different. So this happened when I joined Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. As soon as I joined Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, I found that actually my account and email address was created like a month before I joined.
Okay.
And the day I joined, there were around like 63 emails in my mailbox. And those 63 emails were pertaining to 8 burning projects which needed my attention. So number one, I was new to the pharma field at that point in time, and you see, they expected me to turn around a few things very quickly. So out of those 8 things, 5 were turned around in the same year, like almost in a 7 to 8 months period, and three were a long-term projects. Okay. So it was a very fast learning in those days. I used to spend like 11 or 12 hours in the office, and uh, the change was so profound that even when I tried to apply my IT background and the needs of a regulated sector in developing IT software tools and redefining processes, there was always an error in my estimation. Okay,
Hmm.
because the kind of regulations which are there in pharma, it affects the testing phase of all the projects. So if you can roll out something in other sectors within a month, the pharma life cycle is such and the testing is so rigorous that it will take almost 4 to 5 months to do the same thing in pharma. So that there was a huge difference which the regulations had caused, and I was really new to the pharma sector at that point in time, and it was very challenging period. So this is the biggest learning of my life. So whenever switch sectors or switch industries, there is a huge learning peak which might produce a huge challenge for you to start become productive very quickly. So this is the
Um,
most important learning, in fact. Yeah.
so could you provide an example where you had to navigate regulatory compliances in the pharmaceutical or life sciences industry, and how did you ensure that the project met all necessary standards?
Yeah. So see, pharma is a deeply regulated sector.
Hmm.
In fact, every aspect of drug development, drug design, and drug manufacturing is completely regulated. What it means is that uh, today, if you buy a medicine, let's say you buy a tablet or something, you see the strap. Behind the strap, there is manufacturer's name. There is,
Huh.
you know, there is a manufacturing batch number. There is a manufacture date, and there is an expired date. Using just these things, a drug regulator can dig. I mean, the drug regulator can go to the factory. He can make out, he can withdraw the batch manufacturing record. That record will tell you exactly what ingredients were used, what was the process followed, and whether the process is a predefined and a predefined process. Were there any deviations in the process and all those things? Plus, the regulator can look at the ingredient. He can make out where did that ingredient come from. Okay, who has provided that ingredient, and whether a quality check was done on that ingredient or not. So then from there they can go to the ingredient provider and audit the companies which have provided all the ingredients for that drug. Okay, so it is a very highly regulated field. And if you see in this manufacturing process, everybody is required to capture every bit of information regarding the drug, how it is getting manufactured and where it has come to, where it has come from. So in such kind of a field, if something goes wrong with the patient, it is easy to make out what has happened, whether it's a problem on the side of therapy or whether it's a problem on the side of the drug. You will be able to make that out. So these are really, highly regulated, highly regulated industry. So here, in fact, every drug manufacturing company has to maintain a certification of, a GMP authorized certification saying that we follow all the good manufacturing practices required for drug manufacturing, and that certification is renewed periodically. All right. All right. In addition to that, any regulator will audit, can audit any manufacturing location at any point in time. It could be a surprise audit. Okay. So all our processes which we follow in drug development have to meet certain quality and regulatory standards. And the standards which are defined by the regulator are they are very, very fine. The standards are at, subjective level in other industries like telecom or, other places. But in case of medicines, it is highly defined. So whenever we adopt a manufacturing process or a quality process or a R&D process, we have to look into those regulations and we have to adhere to those regulations. Even if we implement an IT system, there is a whole bundle of regulations that we need to adhere to. And in addition to the requirements of the form and functionality of an IT system, we also have to include all the requirements coming from the regulatory bodies and make that as a part of a requirement set and also test out those requirements. So any project that you do in a pharma and a life science sector or any implementation of a process or an IT system or application, it is very, very rigorous. So it will normally take, 300% to 600% more effort than if you are doing, a bare minimal implementation, which does not, does not need to abide by any regulation. So in that sense, most of the projects that I did were, kind of touched processes which are all regulated processes. And there are quite a few transformatory processes which I've participated in. One is, I am very proud to say that in India, most of our drug manufacturers, most of our global generics and drug manufacturers have achieved, a kind of quality compliance which is one of its kind. So they are completely electronic in nature. So there is no paper record being used anywhere. Okay. So the entire drug development and entire drug manufacturing is completely done electronically. All the records are maintained electronically. So it has a very high quality and it has a good quality of audit trail. So I have seen that in other places, even in the Western world, few quality processes still use paper. The problem with paper is that the paper can be changed. Okay, the records and the details and everything which is written in the paper can be changed. But if it is electronic in nature, then it is tamper proof. Okay, so the electronic processes have a better advantage. So in that sense, one such thing was implementation of LIMS and implementation of electronic laboratory notebooks, which is, transformatory step in kind of pharma and life sciences industry. So I undertook these projects in Dr. Reddy's laboratories for my business unit. And that was one of the key things which achieves a much higher degree of compliance to regulations worldwide. And we have been able to achieve that in around 18 months time for all our locations. And I had participated in those rollouts for two sites. So it was very challenging, and we had to switch over from all the paper processes to electronic processes in that time. And today, I'm very happy to say that some of our top tier industries are completely electronic in nature. We don't use paper at all. So we are, the quality of our practices and the adherence to regulations is very, very high. It is top notch.
Um, Sir, when and how did you develop an interest in ESG and corporate governance?
Yeah, so I have been in this executive position, and I've been working for several companies in different sectors. But I do realize, a couple of years ago that the kind of contribution we make being in an executive role is limited to the company, or it is limited to the customer, or it is even limited in the scope by your role. So you may not be even be able to participate in driving decisions at a top executive level and that kind of stuff. So the impact of what I do is actually very limited in that sense. So I was aware that companies have boards, and boards oversee the management of the company in totality. But I was not aware of the corporate regulations that go in the formation of the board and what kind of role the boards play. So it just happened that I was invited to one of the webinars by World Development Corporation, and that is when I realized that actually the role of independent directors is very, very critical when it goes to managing the affairs of the company, making sure that the company adheres to all the regulations, making sure that their practices are fair, making sure that they are the practices and the business ethics and the conduct of the company in all its affairs is at a level where it is acceptable globally. So I understood all those things, and then the kind of impact the role of a board member plays in the overall direction that the company takes, and its achievements. So having known that, then I understood that there is also a way in which a person can actually continue to work as an independent director while maintaining the executive position as well. So that way, I believe that it is better, it is a better avenue to make a global impact. It is an avenue to make a much wider impact. And at this point in time where our prime minister has especially talked about the Amrit Mahotsav, which is a 25-year accelerated path towards industrialization, towards making India among the top three economies. So by 2047 we are supposed to be among the top three economies. So which means the kind of industrial acceleration that we are going to make now, it is much more important for people like me to participate in that acceleration and produce a global impact. So this is what actually this is what inspired me to look into this into the corporate world and try to become an independent director.
Um, Sir, in your capacity as an ESG and corporate governance specialist, what principles and attributes do you contribute to discussions and initiatives?
Yeah, so right now I have been part of companies which operate globally, but I do find that in many ways we are up to the global benchmarks in terms of corporate governance and environmental sustainability, but there are many places where we are not. Okay, for example, if you go to environmental sustainability, uh, the companies in India are more focused in kind of performing a compensatory role, which means that the core of your operations is still not sustainable. It is not environmental friendly. The core of operations is producing waste, or it is causing harm to the environment. What the companies try to do is try to do a compensation. by by planting more trees, or trying to manage the waste in some matter, in some way. Okay, but the core of your operations, the core process of your operations is still not completely green, and we ought to take that more seriously. That is where I think the independent director can play a role. And then there are areas in which social areas are also there, like women's participation. So right now it is coming up to the mark, but it is still not up to the mark yet. Okay, and
Yeah.
then there is a gender pay parity gap uh, that also needs to be tackled. And while we are still tackling this, globally the benchmark has moved. So now globally people recognize LGBTQ plus. So their society and their workplace are inclusive of LGBTQ plus,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they make sure that they get appropriate representation from the LGBTQ plus community. And so in if we compare ourselves with them, then actually LGBTQ plus does not have a legal recognition in India. Gay
True.
marriages also do not have a legal recognition in India. But when we operate globally, we need to bring that cultural sensitivity in mind, and not just that, we need to ensure that informally also we support those causes, and we sort of are able to form a parity with global work places, even though the legal aspect is missing in India as far as recognition of gay laws is concerned. So there are a lot of places that I see where India and the corporate culture in India is yet to catch up with the global standards and the global expectations. And while as a part of the Amrit Kal also, in the next 25 years, a lot of foreign direct investment will be poured into India, and those companies will expect us to abide by, or at least show a parity with the global culture that they follow, their culture and their practices. So we I believe the independent directors have quite a bit of a role to play over there too. The last thing is about the corporate governance. So corporate governance itself, there have been a lot of issues which have happened in India, and the independent directors play a very critical role, especially in releasing financial statements. As far as financial statements are concerned, that is that is the key reflection of how the company is performing, and that financial statement has to be a very fair reflection of how the company has performed. And the independent directors have a critical role to play over there. So we have seen a lot of issues happening uh, in the way in which financial figures are reflected. And later on, when third party analysts try to analyze the financial performance, they end up making a different kind of a judgment. For example, what happened in the case of Adani, uh, and the analyst, I have forgotten the name of the company. Uh, Actually, Adani was carrying a lot of debt,
The
and
report that came out a few months back.
yeah. So we have to be very, very careful with the global expectations. When you operate globally, when you become a multinational, we have to be very, very careful about our financial projections. The market shouldn't be taken by surprise too much. Uh, the way we disclose, the way we make our financial disclosures has to meet the standards and expectations globally. And so there is a lot of improvements that can be done in those fields too. Okay, so I believe for independent directors, it is a very, very critical role to not just uh, not just do their job fairly, but also look at the global benchmarks, achieve those global benchmarks, and then move a few steps ahead in setting those benchmarks or refining those benchmarks. So I think that's a place where the role of independent director will eventually be able to achieve that. So I think that is where ESG and corporate governance is very, very important for us.
Great, sir. Sir, what notable changes have you seen in your field with the changes in technology, and where do you see, the changes going from here with the advent of IoT, AI, ML, blockchain, Web 3.0?
Yeah. So all of these technologies are actually already implemented in, I mean, across all the industries. So life sciences, clinical and pharma are not new to this, not even telecom. So IoT, AIML, RPA, cloud technologies, and the like, all of them are very much in use, and they are very much in practice. So all of these technologies have picked up in the last decade. Prior to that, there wasn't much of a hype around it, and these technologies did, generate that moment and delivered that exponential value that has been talked about a lot. So what naturally happens in any new technology is the uptake is on the slower side in the beginning, because companies struggle to find use cases to use these technologies, and the cost is very high. Cost of implementation is very high. But over time, the cost of implementation lowers and the adoption also accelerates. And then, they are implemented across the board, across all the processes, client facing processes, internal processes, manufacturing processes, all kind of support processes, everything. So, currently in pharma and life sciences that I am in, there are a lot of examples where all of these technologies are being used. So AI/ML is used in during development of new compounds. So they help you to bring together the right ingredients to obtain the right properties in your drug. Okay, so lot of screening, lot of permutations, combinations, and then screening of chemical properties of your final drug composition. This can be done using AI/ML, and lot of companies have started using screening techniques based on AI/ML. In case of clinical research organizations who conduct clinical trials, there is a new concept called decentralized clinical trials. So what used to happen classically was that if I'm participating in a clinical trial, so a new drug compound is being tested on me. So I have the dosage, the prescription with me, and the drug is also with me, and I'm taking those drugs. And then from time to time, I have to visit a clinic to, they will take they will diagnose me, they will collect my urine, blood, analyze that, and they will take my ECG and all that stuff, and they will find out, okay, this drug has been given to this person, and what is the effect of this drug on the person, whether it is causing any side effects or not, whether the absorption is right, and all that stuff. So earlier, before COVID, what used to happen was that the person who is participating in the clinical trial has to go to the clinic. Okay. Now, what happens in a decentralized clinical trial is that the person did not go to the clinic at all. So during COVID, there was a lockdown in place, and a person cannot go anywhere. But the clinical trial is in progress. So the person is taking the medicine, and now that person needs to be diagnosed with respect to what is the impact of the medicine on the person. So, so this concept of decentralized clinical trial came about. So what happened was, now your ECG machine is miniaturized. So it is just an application which is sitting on your tablet. So you just carry a tab, and the sensor is plugged into that tab. The person goes to the patient's house or the subject's house, and you just boot your tab, you start the application, you insert the sensor plug, you put the sensors on the person, and you just read the ECG. And you just upload that ECG report into your clinical system. Okay. If you remember, the commonly used stuff, there is now a BP monitor which is miniaturized. It is kind of an IoT device. Okay. There is also a blood sugar monitoring machine which is also miniaturized. So all of these are examples of IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, and they are all prevalent. So in case of decentralized clinical trials also, almost everything is carried by the person in his backpack, and the subject is no longer required to go to the lab to get the diagnosis done. All the diagnosis could be done, at their home, at the in the slot in which they need to be diagnosed, and diagnosis will not be missing. Okay. So this concept of decentralized clinical trials has allowed a lot more participation from the community to participate in clinical trials. So that's one transformatory thing which has happened since COVID, and this is a very recent happening in the clinical trial space. So there are numerous such things actually. If you want to talk, there is one more good example. So during drug development phases, a lot of trials are done on animals before humans are used for the trials. That is done so because if there are some unknown properties of the compound, humans should not get affected by it. So the testing of drugs progress in a way in which they are first the trials are conducted on animals and then the trials move towards. So in case of animals also, earlier, for example, you have to measure the pulse of the animal for over a 5-minute period. You would have a device which is strapped onto the animal. So if it is a monkey, you strap the sensor and the strap is tied on the animal, which the animal cannot remove. So the animal used to become very, very uncomfortable, and sometimes they will just damage that sensor altogether. So your readings go haywire. So now what has happened is that that sensor is miniaturized and it is implanted underneath the skin of the animal, which is a minimally invasive surgery, and the animal wouldn't even know that a sensor is there. And the animal is in its cage, it is playing, it is eating, it is in the community, it is having fun. At the same time, the ECG can be recorded 24/7, and the animal will not know. So that is a very small IoT chip, a very, very small IoT chip which is planted onto the animal. And the cost of that chip has gone down now. So this is almost a 8-year-old invention, and now those chips are very, very cheap. Earlier it was very, very costly. So this is another example. So eventually the world would come to a place where you wouldn't even realize that some IoT device or some AI-enabled IoT device is being used somewhere. You would not even know. I mean, they will become all ubiquitous, and we are just converging towards that.
Sir, as you know, we're building a community here of industry magnates. The move is meant for cross-pollination of knowledge and building a knowledge-sharing community of corporate giants and industry experts such as you. What are your thoughts about this initiative taken by Mr. Zishan Pathan, Mr. Heval Mehta, and the whole World Development Corporation team?
I think this initiative has come at a very right time, and India is in need of such an initiative. So,
Yes, sir.
just a couple of years ago, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has made it mandatory for all independent directors who are with less experience to qualify for an exam, and they have done it so to raise the bar of the role and responsibilities of what an independent director is required to perform on the board while sitting on the board. And in light of this 25-year accelerated development program, which our Honorable Prime Minister has talked about, it is all the more important that you have, very good independent
Yes.
directors on the board and very strong and really independent directors on the board. So, in light of all these things, it is very, very important that we have this community in place. Besides, becoming a part of the World Development Corporation is very, very important for us. because the benchmarks which are set in the West right now are, I would say, a cut above at the moment.
Yeah.
So if I were to become an independent director in a multinational company which is headquartered in Europe, Canada, US, Australia, or anywhere in the West, then I am expected to perform at a very different level. Okay. So most of their ESG pillars have achieved a level of benchmark which we also need to achieve over time and reach a place where we define the next benchmark. Okay, we need to be able to extend that horizon further. So, in terms of that, it is essential that we should be able to share experiences and learnings with global counterparts and not just within India or Asia. Okay. So in terms of that also, this World Development Corporation is a very, very important step. Becoming a part of this community is very, very important. So unless we become a part of this, we'll not be able to, learn from our global counterparts. It also helps us to compare our benchmarks, and it also helps us to, set the expectations and aspirations right in the board. Okay, so I think it is very, very important and it has come at the right time for India.
Great, sir. It was fantastic conversing with you, and I'm confident your insights will greatly inspire future leaders. Thank you for joining us today and wish you the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you.